Welcome to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Krochmalnik. Together, we'll explore the art of turning tiny seeds into a thriving microgreens empire, sharing insights, coveted secrets, and strategic wisdom from building one of Canada's largest microgreens farms. Stay tuned for thought-provoking conversations with leading figures in the world of microgreens. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. On today's episode, we have Vitaly from Urban Microgardens in the Chicagoland area of Illinois. Vitaly and his dad started Urban Microgardens in 2020 and have rapidly grown to be a large-scale farm focusing on the restaurant industry in Chicago, growing about 1,000 trays per week now. More recently, Urban Microgardens has expanded into freeze-dried microgreen powders, which they are currently in the processing of launching their first products with that. We talk about the business model, the benefits of freeze drying, and so much more in this episode. Let's get right into it. Hey, Vitaly, welcome to the podcast. I've been following you guys on Instagram for a while, so I'm really excited to share your story and hear more about your farm. So first off, welcome. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I've been a listener, have enjoyed your previous podcast, so thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So yeah, we can just start. I'd love to hear how you got first interested in microgreens and how Urban Microgardens came to be the farm it is today.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny story. Happened kind of going down some rabbit holes about the food that we eat every day. Back in 2019, my father, who's a partner of mine in the business, we work together, Oleg, and I were on this fitness health journey, trying to get a little bit healthier. And I remember it was Saturday morning. I was in bed just Googling, what can I eat? Not really a picky eater, but with my diet that I was on, I was limited to certain things. So just hanging out, Googling food, went down some rabbit holes about what we actually eat and where it's coming from. That led me on this path of trying to figure out a healthier way to eat. Learning where our food was coming from, how it's been harvested, shipped across the country, sometimes across the world. By the time it got into our fridge and sat there for a few days, even when we're trying to eat healthy, a lot of times we're not getting what is promised, what is advertised in these foods. So that's where I came across microgreens in a video on YouTube about a farmer in Canada. Sent that to my dad, said, hey, check this out. We were in the construction, custom home business at that time, building homes here in the Chicagoland area. And always looking for something new to do. My dad's been an entrepreneur his whole life, different directions all over the place. And that's in a nutshell how microgreens came on my radar.
Awesome. So is it you and your dad who started the business together, or like how does that kind of play out in terms of like who runs the kind of day-to-day operations of the business?
Yeah, so we started together. We were working together as partners in the previous business, and I've worked for him in another business we were in. So we've always, since getting out of high school and doing some college, I've worked for the family business, and then we've started businesses. So, we were always looking to do something else together. Kind of got burnt out of the construction business, and started together. Him and I. He's more of on the grow side, although both of us know exactly what to do on both aspects of the business. And then I'm more of the relations with the customers, the sales. So we kind of split that way. But again, we've set it up in a way that both of us know exactly what to do, so that it's a little bit easier. As you know, in this business, when you're on your own, it's 24/7, 365 a year. There's no breaks. This way, I just went away for the weekend with my son for 4 days, and the farm didn't burn down because he knew exactly what to do. So that that has always been a plus for us working together and having two kind of equal partners that know the business.
For sure. Yeah, it's also great that you've been in other businesses together prior, because that's one thing that's always a challenge, is like being in a business relationship is in a lot of ways like a marriage in a way, and that it's such a close relationship that like decisions really need to be made well together, and sometimes when they're not, things can go sour easily. So having the right business partner is really important, and it sounds like you and your dad have get along really well. And there's always challenges, like there's always challenges in decisions, but it sounds like you guys make decisions well together and kind of complement each other on the different aspects of the business, which is a super helpful way to run a business, because you're right, it's a lot to do it all on your own, and it also takes a lot of skill sets that not everyone has all of them, because it's very rare that you have all the skill sets to run a business. So you either hire people or you have partners or help to where your weaknesses are, to either improve them, or more likely, given the time constraints, have someone help out in overcoming those challenges by doing them. Like, for example, for me, I was business minded, but I was more like farming focused. Like I really love the farming side of things. So it would have been great if I had a business partner that loved doing sales, because it wasn't really at the time, my favorite thing to do when I started the business. But I got better at it because I had to, because I wanted to grow the business. But having said that, it would have been nice to have a partner in hand. So that's great that you and your dad are able to do that together. Do you have any employees as well doing the more day-to-day work, or is it just you two handling like all aspects of the business?
Yeah, no, we've got two full-time employees that are now on board, and a couple of others that help when needed. And as we are scaling and expanding this year in a little bit of a different direction, but within the microgreen aspect of the business, we'll talk about that later. We're definitely going to be hiring a few more people. But yeah, getting that extra help in the last couple of years has freed us from a lot of the mundane, tasks that really took up a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, planting, deliveries, the cleanup, all of that is now done, by our two employees, which is really nice. And they've been with us for about 3 years, both of them.
Wow.
They're doing stuff better than we do stuff,
Yeah.
than we did. So it's been great to have those guys come on board.
Totally. Yeah. Like it's again, having you and your dad's experience running businesses prior, I can imagine can help quite greatly, because just, in construction, hiring is probably one of the most difficult things from what I've seen, is to get really good quality people because it's a skilled trade, right? So like the quality of the work that's done really can help determine the success of the business. And in some ways, very similar with microgreens, is like there's a lot of precision that needs to be done to get the quality of the product, especially if you're selling to chefs that really expect like, the top quality microgreens, has large leaves, small stems, and like just to harvest it the right length, and the schedules and all that stuff. So having employees that are reliable and really are passionate about what they do makes such a big difference in any business, but obviously in microgreens. So just going back, I don't know if you might have mentioned in the beginning, I might have not heard it. What year did you guys start the business?
So 2019 is when we started learning about microgreens, about indoor farming. January of 2020 is when we went to Canada. So after watching that particular video and then 1,000 other videos, when I went back to that one video, and I actually reached out and contacted that farmer that got interviewed. He did some consulting. We were not interested in consulting over the phone. We told him, hey, what would it take for us to come and visit you for a week, to do all of the hands-on training, to see how everything actually works? He threw out a number. We said yes, and we were on a plane to Calgary within a week or two. So we spent 5 full days at his farm, getting to plant and water and just see the whole process of how his farm operated. So I think that was very helpful. He had not done something like that for anybody else prior to that, but I think he's done a similar consulting gig since, and we've stayed, very close. I mean, he calls us for advice now, and we call him whenever we have an issue.
Awesome.
But that was, I think, the thing that made us, I guess, move forward quicker than we maybe would have. We got back, and then we right away started kind of planning to start this farm. From the beginning, we didn't want this to be, not that there's anything wrong with people starting in their basement or in their garage. Everybody's got different needs and different places in life where they're at, and I think it's great that people do that. But for us, we wanted it to be a legit project and business that we were gonna pilot and see where it goes. So right away down the street, we actually started in Geneva, the little town that we live in, just outside of Chicago, and now we're in Batavia. It's just a town over 2.5 miles away. But we got about a 1,500 square foot space, and yeah, I mean, I remember I'll never forget the date. March 9th is when we planted our first seeds, and the reason I will never forget that date is because our governor shut down restaurants for indoor dining that same day. So even though we got into microgreens in the beginning, looking for a healthier way to eat, and the nutraceutical benefits of microgreens just blew us away, especially when it comes to antioxidants and the concentrated levels of phytonutrients that everybody talks about. And listening to your podcast, we've heard it over and over again. We knew that to scale this business and to actually go somewhere with it, we'd have to start working with the local restaurants and chefs and talking to a lot of those guys. We love food. We're foodies, love going out. Know a lot of the chefs in the area, good friends of ours. There was a need for fresh local produce. First of all, it's popular. People want to see that. And also there wasn't any great options in the area. There were a few other smaller farms in Chicago and in the area that would pop up and then close down, but nothing consistent that a lot of these chefs can buy. So, with that kind of focus on let's make this a business right away, there was no plan B. We're going to wind down our couple projects we were working on, and did that for about a year. We finished building the last 2 homes while also working about 30 to 40 hours on top of our full-time jobs at the farm to get it going. So that was a very, very trying time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Beginning of COVID, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that, even though you literally started at the time that can be perceived, especially in the restaurant space, as the most difficult time that we've, I think, experienced in the last decade-ish of microgreens farms becoming more popular. It's nice to see that you persevered. You didn't let that stop you from continuing, because it's very easy to be like, oh, restaurant shut down. How are we going to make a business? Boom, let's go back to construction or do something else. So it's nice to see that, when you really are passionate about something, when you believe in it, it's a lot easier to get through the difficult times, which is why it's so important to really do what you love, because I find it's just a lot easier to do the more difficult things in running a business. Like, realistically, does anyone really like doing bookkeeping? I don't know. Maybe some people do, but I don't think anyone's like super excited to do it. But when you think about this is supporting the business and helping us see where we're making money, where we can improve. Like, it makes it a lot easier to do that kind of mundane work or repetitiveness of actual farming. So it's just so important that the passion is there. And it sounds like you and your dad are really excited about this business and where it can go. You mentioned earlier that you're going through an expansion. So you have a 1,500 square foot space now. Are you moving in the near future to a new facility?
That was our pilot location. So about
Oh, okay.
3 years ago, we moved into a 6,000 square foot facility. Both were kind of warehouse spaces, taller ceilings. I think our first facility actually had 18-foot ceilings. This one is also probably about 16-foot ceilings. Um, so we've been in this new facility for about, I think it's coming up on 3 years. We've got 6,000 square feet.
Wow.
So that was
Wow.
our big expansion from our pilot location that we were in for probably about two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of space. So you guys are like what's the weekly roughly tray count that you're growing at this point? Obviously it changes with the seasons, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think we're coming up on about 1,000 trays. Um, so like I said, starting this microgreen journey, we're all about health. Then we're off to trying to scale the business and grow the business. So we had to focus on mostly restaurants. But we worked with a little bit with grocery stores, uh, no distributors, because we found that it was kind of the same issue with distributors that we saw with out of town microgreen companies that sell through current distributors. Um, we didn't want our product to sit in a warehouse for days before getting delivered to our customers in this area. So we were always wanting to provide a product that had the maximum shelf life when working with whether it's our retail clients or our chef restaurant clients. Everything we do, harvested, delivered, within 24 hours. That was our goal, and we've kind of stuck to that plan since then. Um, so the last, I'd say, about a year into starting the business, um, the whole COVID thing was both kind of a curse and a blessing because we had the time to learn. My father and I do not come from a farming background, from a gardening background. I don't think either one. Maybe once we tried to plant something somewhere. My grandmother had 150 tomato plants every summer in her garden, so we would benefit from getting these amazing vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, and other stuff from her garden. But we were so busy, working and doing stuff that really was never something we got into. So getting into microgreens, I mean, we had no clue at all what we were doing. We had a desire to learn. Both of us are very attention to detail type of guys. If we want to learn a new hobby or something interests us, we will spend hours and hours, days and weeks learning. So that's been a benefit for us to growing our business and actually having some great products. I mean, our we do both harvested and live. And when you
Okay.
have live products that you deliver, I mean, they have to be perfect. Those trays have to be perfect. We do smaller and bigger trays. So the attention to detail and really grinding that first year while we really weren't selling a whole lot um, actually benefit us just to learn how to do things the right way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that first consultation and then a lot of calls after that trying to figure out how to grow things, what products to use, where to buy things. That was great. But now looking back on it, I mean, 90% of the stuff that we do has been things that we've come up with ourselves, things that we've learned. So that first year, as difficult as it was actually a blessing.
Totally.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel the same way. I feel like if I while I studied business in school and understood the general concepts. It's very different to run a business, you know, like, and it was, and Microgreens Living Earth Farm was my first business. So it started off slower and built up over the years to the point where, like, you know, it got to a very large scale farm. But having said that, having that time in those first couple of years to experiment, to like, just like, I same way, I would be very obsessive and just like research for like hours and hours, like how can I perfect the lighting recipe, the soil recipe, like what things can I try, do the experiments, see what works. Like, that knowledge reinforces what does work, what doesn't work, and you just keep doing that until you find a better and better recipe that produces a higher quality product. um, and while there's much better information out there now than there was pre-COVID, I still encourage people to always experiment, because if you just do what someone else has already done, you're not really moving the ball forward. Like, the people that get ahead innovate beyond what already exists. So like, if you just do the same thing that already exists, it'll get you to a good point and you can have a good business. But if you really want to like have something unique and special and have like a competitive advantage in your market, you really need to put some effort into go beyond what currently exists. Like, if you think about um you know, like pretty much anything, you think about even just like AI, if they just like stopped at one point and no one wanted to get beyond that point, it would just, we'd have the same computers, the same technology for the next like in like 100 years or whatever, but people want to continuously improve upon what exists. So it's the same thing in microgreens. I'm excited to see more and more farms like find new ways to automate things, to have higher quality product, have higher nutrition in their microgreens, because like that's why a lot of people consume microgreens, is for the nutrition. um, and yeah, and innovative ways to sell the product through different types of customers. Like, all that stuff is, to me, is so exciting, because you can take what already exists and steepen that learning curve, and then spend the time to experiment on the next frontier of different areas to explore. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I saw on your website you guys have greens powder, microgreens powder. That's something that I see as being like a new frontier in the space. There's going to be a lot of, you know, requirements to get the efficiency right. But having said that, I think there's a huge opportunity, because I think about, I'm traveling now. I would love to have some microgreens powders, because I'm in New Zealand, and surprisingly, there's not really any microgreens here, so I can't consume microgreens all the time when I'm traveling. Or if there's people that just don't like eating greens, to be honest, there's lots of people like that. They could just take a pill or a powder and put in their smoothie, and then they actually can consume it. So I guess the next thing I'd love to hear about is your journey with the powders, if it's new, if something you've been doing for a while, and how that kind of works for you guys.
Yeah, so about a year into, I guess, starting the business, we started getting traction. More restaurants started opening up, started selling to chefs, but we kept on going back to, you know, why did we get into this in the first place? Um, the retail business is super tedious. Most people, you know, want a couple containers a week. Um, you know, at one point we were dropping off, oh man, we were delivering 50, 70, 80 retail deliveries, you know, a day, sometimes a couple of days a week. And it was just a lot.
Yeah.
It was too much, very small orders. And even though we wanted people to um, get these greens and eat them for the right reason, for the benefits, um, there was just no good way to do it. We have some people that come and pick up at the farm, but I'd say right now 95% of our business is restaurants, and only about 5% is retail. So about a year in, we started thinking, how can we get our greens to more people in a more efficient way? Even for us running the farm, having these greens around us, I'll take greens home. My wife is amazing at getting her greens, and everything that I'll bring home or she picks up, she'll eat. Um, for me, I'll bring something home, I'll forget it for 3-4 days, and then I'll
Yeah.
think, well, the reason I got into this business was because I know that after even 3-4 days, the nutritional value starts declining. So, you know, even with my own product, it's really hard for me personally to get greens in all the time. So about a year in, we we bought a freeze dryer, our first freeze dryer, started to experiment. And then we've pretty much spent the last 4 years in research and development, not only to get the nutrition right with the perfect grow cycle for the 4 to 5 greens that we're going to have in this powder, but also to get the yields right.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys out there trying that have been selling just the pure microgreen powder. But you look at what they're offering, and it's just a fraction of what you need for a daily amount of powder that would even make sense for you to, take. So for us the question was, can we get yields high enough to make it a business where it would make sense for us to do, and then it would be beneficial for the people that will be paying for a premium product.
For sure.
So like you said, you can't find microgreens everywhere. We have people calling us trying to order from all over the country, individuals and chefs. And then we've had chefs and individuals as far as Dubai send us emails and call us and say, hey, how can we get your product here? Can you guys send it, next day? I mean, it's kind of crazy. We haven't done it because, the shipping rates would be outrageous.
Yeah.
So we've always been thinking, how can we get this into the hands of as many people that need it, that want it, but also how can we make it as nutritional as possible? With the new freeze-dried technology, you're locking in 97% of the nutrients. So when you're taking a product that already has these nutraceutical benefits in such a small package, the delivery system is unbelievable when it's even smaller due to taking 95% of the water out of it. I mean, I get my greens in every single day now because I put it in my shaker and I have it first thing in the morning. And it's the equivalent of a whole container that you can buy at the grocery store in a single serving. And I know that the shelf life on it is amazing. All the nutrients are there. Everything that we harvest gets flash frozen right away and into the freeze dryer. That means there's no loss of nutrients whatsoever. So that's something we've been really passionate about. From the beginning, we made a decision that we are going to donate greens to our local food pantry. We've been doing that for 5 years now. Almost, I'd say about 48 deliveries a year we do. With the holidays, it's closed on some Saturdays, but our local pantry gets the freshest microgreens for the guests coming in, and it's the biggest food pantry in the state of Illinois. So we've wanted to do that, but with this powder, it takes to a whole different level. We recently sent 23 daily or 23 monthly servings to an orphanage in Malawi.
Wow.
That friends of ours run with 23 orphans there so that they can get this daily nutritional benefits of the microgreens. And
that's incredible.
The nutritional deficiency, both in this country and around the world, is crazy, especially with kids. So, our bigger vision for this is not only provide an amazing supplement for the people here, a whole food supplement, but also, do some good around the world with it.
Yeah, that's one thing that's, first of all, that's incredible. Congrats on the success of that. I think just like first of all, just having the vision of what you want like the business to be like. Of course, selling to restaurants is great. You're still serving like a great community of people that are still getting the health benefits of it. It's just usually in smaller quantities per serving than if it's like a more retail product, but there's still huge benefits just there alone. And then having the freeze dried product, like I always think like freeze dried, dried. There's not that much of a difference, but I think they're really. It sounds like there really is a big difference by freeze drying it because you're like locking in a dried state, pretty much fresh product, which is very unusual because green powders. Like when you look at the actual like vitamins and minerals in the greens powders, they're especially the vitamins because they degrade over time. They're usually quite they're not as high as you would think. Um, in AG1, those type of powders, and it's probably because it's not freeze dried, so like you lose a lot of the some things stay, minerals stay. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know if like the antioxidants, how well they stay versus don't stay. But obviously, a lot of people purchase these type of powders because they're just easy and people want convenience. And the fact that you can ship freeze dried microgreens literally anywhere. I don't think there's any like requirements because it's a dried product, so there's no like you ship fresh product across the border. There's all sorts of import requirements and stuff like that. I believe if it's freeze dried, it's a dried product. It doesn't have the same restrictions, and then plus you can ship it literally anywhere and not have to worry about it going bad. So there's some really big benefits on top of the nutrition being kept. The biggest challenge I see, which I don't know the numbers side of it, um, like how like if you let's say in theory you converted the business to just be freeze dried microgreens, would it still with the labor involved in the processing, is it still a profitable business in and of itself, or is it more like a supplement to like a microgreens business? Like if someone wanted to start just like a freeze dried microgreens business, would it be something that is a viable, profitable business to start on its own, in your opinion?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, we work with a lot of very, very smart people right now that are way smarter than me. We're working with scientists, with doctors, with food scientists, um, into just trying to figure out how to do this the best way. Um, we'd like to offer just a pure microgreen powder, but our goal is to we formulated a powder that has a couple other ingredients for it to be more palatable, for it to be um, a little bit easier to drink for most people. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way. We're still sticking to all natural ingredients, all whole foods ingredients, so that the integrity of our powder is going to be from what we wanted from the very beginning, a true whole food supplement. Um, having that said, there's some people that still want that pure powder, which we're going to offer.
got
That's
it.
what I do right now. I don't need something that tastes, sweet and great. I know it's beneficial for me. I could chug a 6 ounce, 8 ounce cup of green juice and have no problem with it. Uh, you mentioned some of the other companies that are doing greens powders. Um, there's a huge difference between freeze dried and, let's say, dehydrated. When you
Yeah.
dehydrate greens or vegetables or fruits, that process and the heat that it takes to dehydrate kills about 40% of the nutrients. So you're
Wow.
left with just 60% of the nutrients. So freeze dried technology in the last few years has been amazing with what they've been able to do. And with freeze dried technology, if you've got a vacuum sealed freeze dried product, the shelf life is 20, 25 years. It's crazy. Uh,
Wow.
that's the other big benefit of freeze drying. And when it comes to prebiotics, probiotics, if you freeze dry, let's say sauerkraut, all of the probiotics in that gets in a dormant state, and then it'll rehydrate and come alive again. It's amazing.
Crazy. Wow, I
Yep.
didn't know that.
So freeze drying is the technology that they've come up with is unbelievable. So we're working with a lot of people, like I said, in the industry, in both the supplement industry, to bring something that is beneficial, but we know what's in there. A lot of these supplement companies out there have lost trust because they're using the same exact ingredient companies to acquire ingredients, mix them. nobody's really doing and growing their own products and
Yeah,
can
that's
tell you
very true.
exactly what's in there.
Totally.
Um, our farm, if you go in our farm, I call it a lab. It's not a farm. Everything is meticulous. You walk in there, yes, we're growing greens, but everything is super clean, down to the water. The technology for the RO system that we have, we strip the water of everything before it gets put into the soil for our crops to grow. Um, why microgreens versus sprouts? Uh, we don't top water anything, so none of our greens are contaminated by any of the water. Um, no pesticides, no additives of any kind. So we've got such a pure product um, that comes from a clean facility uh, that you can't really compete with, with it. So that's a big selling point, I think, for us, uh, is that we know exactly, like I said, what's coming in the product. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point because a lot of supplement companies, they're of course not generally manufacturing whatever it is, the like vitamin C or whatever, that usually they buy it from somewhere in bulk and then put it in a pill format or a powder format or whatever it is, and then brand it. So it's really interesting to like to have like a full vertical integration from actual manufacturing of the or growing of the greens to the processing of it to potentially. It sounds like you're piloting right now the greens powder. It's not something that's like soup. That's not like mass produced at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
ready. We're just a few weeks away from actually launching, so it's an exciting
Wow.
time. We've got some partners in launching this. Um, so it's getting close. Yeah, we're in our final formulation stage right now with our scientists into getting the final formula.
That's amazing. One thing that off topic, but also related to like the quality of the food that we eat. There's a guy who's become quite popular now, Brian Johnson. He's like trying to live forever. And a lot of people may have heard of him, if not, very interesting character at the very least. But he's pretty much trying to like find a way to reduce the speed of aging. And what he's done recently is he's tested all the food that he was consuming, and
Mhm.
it's surprising. And like organic, not like a lot of food it has like heavy metals or pesticide residue or all these things, and it's just not like we don't really do thorough testing on our food to know what brands, what sources. Like you'd be surprised, he did like this video where he showed like 5 or 6 different chocolate companies, like chocolate bar brands, and some of them you'd be shocked, like healthy, considered healthy, like dark chocolate had very high levels of heavy metals. And same thing, like even something as simple as lentils, you think, oh, like you just buy some lentils, how unhealthy could it be? And while it's still healthier than eating like McDonald's, it's crazy how much contamination there is in our food supply. So it's really refreshing to be able to have a supplement and microgreens, and just honestly microgreens in general, that are grown in a way that doesn't require any of these chemicals, that's usually grown in a pretty clean soil for the most part. Like most growers use some sort of peat or coconut coir, which is a relatively clean product. It's not likely to be heavily contaminated with anything, mostly because it just comes from like for peat moss, it comes from like far north in Canada where there's just no people, so there's no pollution sort of thing. um, and coconut coir it grows on a tree, so it's less likely to absorb um, as many things. But point being is that like our food supply is not as clean as we would think we would want it to be. So to support farms that are actually producing clean, high quality food by buying their products and consuming that food is not only good for the person consuming it, but is good for the whole food economy, where we're actually producing food that is a win-win for everyone. That it's healthy food, it's clean and nutritious, it's supporting local farmers, and in this case, it's a product that's actually self-stable, so there's much less risk of having product go bad. Because like I can tell you, I used to take home 2 pounds of microgreens a week, and I
Mhm.
would I would put them in smoothies, but like 2 pounds of microgreens is a lot to consume in like a few days. Um, so there'd be times that even I as like a farmer would end up wasting product, because it's like, how do you consume that quantity? And if you just had them freeze dried, then there's no stipulation on time of you have to consume it within this period of time. So it's better for the consumer in some ways. I would still prefer, if I had a choice between one or the other, I would prefer to eat fresh greens, because like there's something about it, it's very like uh, alive and nourishing. But the convenience of freeze dried product is you can't beat it. Like literally, I don't know how you'd be able to beat it. Um, but I wanted to go back to so you sell 95% to restaurants. What would you say are the crops that are the most popular in your local market for that customer base?
Yeah, we at one point we were up to 45 different crops, and that's a lot. We were trying to grow everything for everybody that asked. Um, and I think we're down to about 25 crops right now. It's more manageable, a little bit easier. Um, I would say the more popular products would be some of our herbs. Cilantro is a very popular one. Our basils, we have 3 different basils. We've got a bicolor, a red Reuben, and you see your regular Genovese. We do a mix of those, and then those live also are very popular. Pea tendrils are super popular. The real pea tendrils,
Yeah,
we mostly only sell those live.
really.
Um, yeah, we've had a lot of success with the way we grow them. They look great and they've been popular. And then I'd say the mixes, our spectrum mix, standard spectrum mix, we go through quite a bit of that.
Awesome. What would you say out of the ones you do grow? Like when you take microgreens home to consume for your wife, for you and your kids? What is the like? What is your favorite thing to take home and consume?
I personally love sunflowers. Sunflowers are one of my favorite. We do have a garden mix that we do mostly for retail customers that has the regular peas, sunflowers, and then pretty much a spectrum mix for the rest of it. So that's probably the one that I take home the most, and it's pretty much a salad in it of itself. You don't have any
Yeah.
other greens. We rarely buy greens. That's pretty much our salad mix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and also honestly, like I live in Toronto, and even in the summer months, but especially this time of year, you guys are in a very similar climate. All the stuff comes from California or Arizona, all the lettuce and greens, and it lasts like literally like 2 maybe 3 days from when you actually take it home from the grocery store. So it just a lot of times just doesn't make sense if you can buy microgreens to buy, because like if you throw out half of the clamshell, what is it really costing you? So um, in a lot of ways, microgreens make a lot more sense because they're actually grown locally. They taste better, they're fresher, and they just last longer, because partially because they're not grown like 5-6 days away before you actually get them. um, yeah.
Yeah, like for the mix that I take home, sometimes I'll forget it in the back of the fridge, and a week and a half later, it's still fine.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of the stuff from the grocery store, if you don't use it within 2-3 days, it's pretty much bad after that.
Yeah, yeah. And I also saw on your website you guys do edible flowers. Is that is that something you grow year round, or is it more seasonal type of
Um,
product?
we launched the program about a year and a half ago. It went well. A lot of the edible flowers, it's mostly the higher end, almost like Michelin star chefs that want those. Um, I mean, we succeeded in growing them, but the demand for them wasn't as consistent
Mm,
as we wanted.
yeah,
So it just didn't make sense. You almost need a separate space for them.
yeah,
With flowers, even if you've got the best seeds, it's a long term grow that still attracts bugs.
yeah.
we had to have a separate space, and it was just too much to manage. Um, with this new direction that we're going, I don't know if we'll get back to flowers. Uh, they were awesome. We loved growing them, but like I said, it's almost like bourbon. You make it and then you have to wait years and years. Here it's not years, it's months, but it's when we're harvesting stuff that's 12 to
Yeah.
5 weeks, 4 to 6 months to see the flowers bloom. It's a long-term investment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all relative, right? Because like as a microgreens grower, uh, most things are relatively short term. So compared to like growing tomatoes, like your grandma had to wait probably 60, 70 days till her tomatoes were ready.
Yep.
It's all relative. But having said that, when you're paying for electricity and the premium space of renting industrial commercial space, like you got to account for those costs. So that's one thing that I've seemed to that's why I was just curious on how that was working. I think from what I've seen and heard, it seems like the best way to do edible flowers is either seasonally outdoors in like a greenhouse type of setup where you don't have the cost of electricity and the time is not as big of an issue because you can automate the watering and just kind of leave it and then just pick them as needed. So there's much less cost. Or if you live in a relatively warm climate, you could just do it outdoors year round. Not say, like obviously you've done it and it works. It's just is it like it's so hard to find anything as profitable as microgreens that makes sense for an indoor farm. Like there's a reason so many lettuce farms, these large scale lettuce farms, or just haven't found the success that microgreens farms had. And a lot of the big ones like Arrow Farms, like they all just kind of shifted to microgreens because they saw that this is where the numbers make sense and can have a viable long term business. I think it'll get there with these other products. But that's where I kind of see like the freeze dried is like you can grow the product that's most profitable and then value add to it by freeze drying it. And that's a way that even if the margins aren't as high with the freeze drying, there's a big market potential there that like you move volume. So that's where it kind of makes up for the extra cost of actually freeze drying it. But I haven't crunched the specific numbers to see how that works. But that's what I
Well,
would on
yeah,
first glance imagine.
you talked about Ryan Johnson and the food that he was eating and how um, he found so many other things in there. Uh, the food industry is super regulated, where the supplement industry is not. Um, so where a lot of these supplement companies are getting in trouble is you see fillers in their supplements that are as crazy as sawdust and concrete dust coming out of China, and that's not regulated at all. So like we were talking before, the fact that we're in control of every aspect of the process and know exactly what's going into our product is a huge deal. So I think you asked about the profitability of it. I think that's why it's taken us 4 years to try to figure this out, because growing microgreens a conventional way, I don't think we'd be able to do this product and bring it to market. We had to figure out a way to grow it where both the benefits, the nutritional benefits were there and the yields were high enough for us to do it. And that was the tricky part. I mean, we would have brought this to market 4 years ago if that was as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally. Yeah, I'm actually hoping to visit a couple of farms back in Canada when I'm back there in March, and they're both farms that get extremely high yields, like the highest I've ever heard of. And I'm curious on how they're doing that. So I'd love to share that, and because I think that's the way, like you said, like if the yields are high enough, it can make sense. But if you're getting like 150 grams off a tray of, let's say, cilantro, and you wanted to sell freeze dried cilantro, it might be a bit tough. If you're getting like a kilogram or like 2 pounds off a tray of pea shoots, it's a lot easier to make the numbers work, right? So crop selection is important, and then also um, getting the yields up that it makes sense to actually freeze dry it. But the challenge with that is like I think, which is why it sounds like it takes longer, is like it's easy to get yields really high, but then quality can be affected. So you really have to find the way to balance the two, so you have a high quality product and a higher yield. And in some ways, they are inversely correlated. Like if you just dump like 50 grams of broccoli seed, you can get a really high yield, but there's not much green on it. So the powder is not going to be very green, as an example. It won't be as nutritious as it would be if it was like a full sized broccoli. So there's probably a balance act there and figuring that out. And it sounds like that's what you guys have been working on in the background. So I'm excited to see the product launch. And yeah, and just see it out there and see it succeed and all the hard work that went into it.
Yeah, no, it's great. A lot of friends and family and people who were interested early on have been testing it and trying it for the last few months, the last couple of years, and there's definitely benefits to it. I've seen it, for myself. We've got a couple of college athletes trying it, and they've seen great response to recovery time that they've been tracking with their coaches and personal trainers. So, yeah, it's very exciting and something that, like I said, it's been a long time coming. So,
yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to see that come to fruition. Um, so as we get closer to wrapping up here, I asked this question to farms. I think it's just a um, one that it's just it's always nice to know like where the challenges are in farms and how um, yeah, just trying to figure out how to help more farms. So if you can like just magic exists and you could just wave a wand and instantly solve a challenge you have in your business, what specific issue or challenge would you want to resolve and why?
yeah, I mean, it really depends which aspect of the business, in particular. Um, but I would say for us, the sales part was always tough. We were told early on by a few farmers around the world that selling is easy. It's the growing part that's hard. It's been the opposite for us.
Yeah,
Like I said before, so attentive to detail and really wanting to learn and perfect something. Uh, the growing part has been easy for us. A part of, some challenges here and there with seed quality and the normal stuff in the industry. The growing part has been fairly easy. It's the sales part that we struggled with early on. Uh, the consistency of the orders. We were told there's going to be a revolving door of customers, especially in the restaurant business. We haven't had that. We work with probably 90% of the restaurants that we started with
wow,
back in 2000, late 2000. We've kept those customers. I think the difficult part was within even the restaurants that we were working with, the changing of the chefs.
yeah,
We had the orders were a lot of times the restaurants are used to placing orders with vendors that have things on the shelf. We always grow for each restaurant separately. So we have standing orders. And a lot of times chefs and restaurants don't understand that. And it's difficult for them to, if they have a slow week, they've got leftover product. Our shelf life is amazing. Some of our chefs are using our stuff 3 weeks later because it just holds up. So, newer chefs that come into some of these restaurants that we work with think that they could cancel or add something, very easily. So that was a challenge early on, trying to figure that out. But then communicating with them and trying to figure out what works and giving them ample time to change orders was helpful.
yeah,
Yeah. For us, I think if that makes sense, that was
yeah,
the
totally.
difficult part because we
Yeah,
didn't want,
no,
we didn't want waste, and we like you said, we wanted a profitable business that deliver a great product. But how do you do that when you're growing a very tough product to grow? For your chefs.
Yeah, that's also costly to waste product because it's not cheap to grow either, right? To process, to package, to deliver. It's yeah. So we had the same model. Like we had grow to order, and there was some like standing orders, and some customers were like when we did our sales pitch and they just that didn't work for them, and that's totally okay. Like it's not going to work for everyone, and you got to make a business that works for you, and ideally work for your customers as well. But if it doesn't work for you, like we had big distributors that wanted to place an order 24 like less than 24 hours in advance and have us like 5-6 days a week be ready to go with product, and it would have been a huge opportunity, but it just didn't work for the business model we had. And for us to switch our whole business model and have staff there till like 5-6 p.m. every day just to wait for pickups, and this, like it just didn't make sense for us. So what's nice about being entrepreneurs, you can choose how you want to run the business, and it can make it more challenging in some ways, but also can make it a lot easier. Because imagine if you had to deliver 5-6 days a week to chefs because they want it 24 hours after they order it, or they won't do a standing order. They just whenever they order, they just want it available. That's a common way that the industry works, which is why some chefs like to go through distributors, but they just won't get the quality. So if the value of the quality is higher than the convenience of buying from a distributor, then they're more likely to work with a farm like yours. And a lot of chefs really focus on quality because like they want their food to come off the best and taste the best and look the best. And just oftentimes, if it's coming from like a Cisco or US Foods, it's going to be like a really big farm that's just pumping out product. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different model. And by doing that, you're not going to really focus on the quality in the same way. So um, I'm glad that even though that is a challenge, and I think that's just the way the industry works, finding a model that works for you, which it sounds like you've done, and then the customers stay with you because they're happy with the product. So um, sounds like it was a challenge, but it sounds like it's maybe it still is, but it sounds like it's been figured out in some capacity in the model that you have for the business.
Yeah, yeah, like you said, it's really choosing to work with the customers that you want to work with that understand the benefit of what you're providing for them. Um, and we've had customers that I remember we shut down for 1 week during these last 5 years because of COVID. We had a few people sick, so we decided to shut down for a week, and that's when some of the customers ordered from distributors, and then called us, said what we ordered, half of it didn't come, and the half that came wasn't great. Can you please still deliver at the end of the week? So that's where this was 2021, where we saw the benefit of our product, that hey, we actually have a great product that's delivered on time every single time. Every single customer that has a standing order, they'll always get their order. We do
Yeah.
go a little extra for chefs that need a little extra, or for somebody that just calls out of the blue. But yeah, if that doesn't work for somebody, then there's not a whole lot we could do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like I think an important lesson in business is like you can't make every customer like you like not everyone that's potentially a customer should be your customer. It's really want to fit as well. Like even like not yeah, it's just not everyone's going to be a good fit. We've had many places that I thought would be a good fit, but the requirements just didn't make sense. Like we had the opportunity to sell to Whole Foods, but the requirements they needed a refrigerated truck, 3 listeria swabs every single week sent to a lab to test for listeria. The pricing structure was different than like there was different like this whole markup kind of situation that they do is different than smaller retailers. So it just didn't make sense. And my dream was to sell. Like I was like, if I sell to Whole Foods, that means I made it. That was like in my head what I thought making it was. And then I realized when the opportunity came that like even though like for my personal like success, and what I thought it was, it just didn't make sense for the business. So it didn't make sense for the business, and I decided not to move forward with it. It would have been cool. It would have been really cool to see the product in the shelves there, but it just didn't make sense for the scale we were at, even though we were a larger farm, to sell there when there was other opportunities available that we can sell and just get more product out the door with less kind of red tape and extra costs that no one else really required from our current customer base. So I think it's a lesson that like just because there's an opportunity doesn't mean you should take it, and it's really about is it a good fit for the business model you want to create, and that's a much better way to look at it, which it sounds like you've done because you stuck with the standing order and made it work and scaled up the business clearly quite well. So congrats on that. And yeah, if listeners want to connect more with you or your farm, where can they find you guys online and on social media?
Yeah, Urban Micro Gardens, all the socials under that name. First Leaf is the name of our supplement that's going to be coming out. So drinkfirstleaf.com. You can go there and put your email in, and you'll be the first ones to know when that hits the market. Super excited about that. So yeah, reach out and let us know if you have any questions. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of our story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was great to hear and just to hear the innovation that's happening and yeah, the success you guys are having. So thanks so much for coming on. It was great chatting.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Microgreens Mastery Podcast. To access a wealth of insights, just click the subscribe button, stay notified about each new episode, and enjoy all of this wisdom for free. If you're ready to supercharge your microgreens business, visit microgreensconsulting.com for a gold mine of guides and resources. We've transformed thousands of microgreens businesses, and you're invited to join the success story. Let's stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Microgreens Consulting for exclusive content and expert tips and wisdom. If you found this episode insightful, please leave us a review, spread the word, and let's share microgreens magic with the world. Until next time, let curiosity fuel your growth, and may happiness be your harvest. Happy growing, everyone.